The story begins with the fact that one fine day the soldiers said that there was a threat of infiltration and their comrades were injured. The soldiers ordered all their men to prepare because the phantom was already approaching, and suddenly one of the soldiers noticed it behind him. And at that moment the phantom very quickly dealt with all the soldiers and did not spare any of the people. And suddenly after this, Gu Cheng was informed and ordered to try to calm down and not make hasty conclusions. The man said that he remembered that Gu Cheng swore to Su Hang to protect his wife and daughter, but his actions led to their demise. The man said that their organization would definitely take revenge for their deaths and ordered him to immediately return back. Gu Cheng told the instructor that for the first time he would ask him for forgiveness for not following his given order. And suddenly after these words, Gu Cheng threw away his walkie-talkie and decisively moved towards the opposite room. Gu Cheng entered this room and was met by a man. He was glad to see the phantom and said that they had finally met. The phantom told the man that they had searched 8 countries and 16 cities and finally they managed to find him. But suddenly the man smiled and pointed a gun at the phantom and asked what they wanted to do with him after finding him. The man told the phantom to let him know that amazing changes were now taking place in this world. The man said that the phantom did not need to see these changes, although he had no equal in his business, but he would have come to an end. But unexpectedly, after these words, the man shot at the phantom Geo. He managed to dodge the flying bullet with lightning speed. The phantom jumped towards the man and thought about his friend Su Hang and how he failed to take care of his family. The phantom thought that at least he would avenge their deaths, but suddenly the man smiled and said goodbye to the phantom. The phantom did not understand what was happening and what this man had done to him, and suddenly after that he lost consciousness. And suddenly when Gu Cheng opened his eyes they called him Su Yuan and asked what he bought and wanted to beat him. But at the moment when the bully wanted to hit Gu Cheng, he struck back and very quickly tied up this guy. Gu Cheng continued to beat the guy, but the guy couldn't understand why Su Yuan had become so ruthless and cruel. And suddenly at that moment one girl noticed the fight and she couldn't believe her eyes when she saw how Su Yuan was beating someone. And then Gu Cheng looked at the girl and wondered what kind of place it was, and he was clearly not in the main headquarters of a terrorist organization. Gu Cheng thought that this couldn't happen and it was some kind of nonsense, because he remembered his death and what this man did to him. And suddenly at that moment Gu Cheng noticed that he had the memories of a completely different person in his head. Gu Cheng realized that here his name was Su Yuan and he seemed to be 17 years old and lived in Linyuan City. His parents died 3 years ago in a car accident, and so he was raised by his aunt from an early age. And since then, every time he was bullied by the guys who studied with him and he was a real weakling. He studied at the 3rd City High School and had bad grades and was despised by all his classmates. And at that moment, Gu Cheng realized that these were his own memories and it seemed that he really ended up in the body of another person. But suddenly at that moment someone asked Su Yuan what he had done, but suddenly Su Yuan turned around and hit him with all his might. All of the guy's classmates froze in surprise and couldn't believe that Su Yuan beat someone again today. The man said that the guy seemed to have been replaced, because besides the fact that he beat his classmates, he dared to hit the teacher. And after that the teacher stood up and asked the guy if he had forgotten who he was or had gone completely crazy and didn't remember anyone. The guy reported and said that his code name was Gu Cheng and he was a fighter in an elite secret unit and his call sign was a phantom. The teacher asked the guy if he really decided to joke with him and said that Zhong Hui should have come there and made him miserable. The teacher ordered the guy to go quickly and report his behavior to the disciplinary committee. Su Yuan agreed and ran there. But suddenly he stopped and asked the teacher for permission to ask him a question and asked where this committee was located. The teacher got angry and said that now the guy would stand in front of the main gate of the school so that everyone would know what a fool he is. And after that, the girls from this school noticed that someone was standing at the gate and they wanted to go and see what was happening there. Su Yuan stood motionless and all the students were wondering what he was doing, and they heard that he stood because he was punished. The girls said that they heard that Su Yuan was spying on the women's restroom and it was very disgusting. Gu Cheng thought that this body was very weak and it was difficult for him to even just stand still. Gu Cheng was in the alien body of an ordinary student and it became clear to him that it was now 2021. Gu Cheng remembered that Su Hang's wife was killed the following year and he recalled that she lived in Linyuan town. Previously, He didn't want them to have problems and that's why he sent them money and they didn't really trust him so he didn't know where to look for it. Moreover, now he was not Gu Cheng and first he needed to understand what really happened and how he became Su Yuan. But at that moment the same teacher whom he had beaten approached him and he was surprised whether Su Yuan was still standing there. Su Yuan reported to the teacher that no new orders had been received, so he continued to carry out the order and stand there. The teacher asked if he had gone crazy and said that everyone had already left half an hour ago and told him to go home. Su Yuan agreed with the teacher and left there. He wanted to remember where his new home was and it looked like it was not far from there. And suddenly a girl on a bicycle appeared in front of him. She lost control and couldn't stop and was rolling down the road. Suddenly, the girl drove off the road and fell straight into Gu Cheng. The guy fell to the ground and seemed to lose consciousness. The girl was shocked by this and thought that she had hit an innocent person and she did not know what needed to be done in such a situation. And besides, the girl hit her classmate and she got nervous and asked the guy if he was alive and if everything was okay with him. But unexpectedly, at this moment, Su Yuan simply stood up and walked to the side. The girl was surprised and asked if he shouldn't have gone to the hospital. The girl asked the guy not to worry and said that she was from a wealthy family so she could give him money to forget about this incident. The guy said that everything was fine with him and asked the girl to go where she was going to go and not disturb him. The girl said that it was her fault that he was hurt, especially since he was bleeding and needed help. The girl said that she wanted to ride a bike with other classmates, but she still hadn't learned how to ride it. But suddenly Su Yuan turned to her and said that there were no bad soldiers in this world and there were only lazy losers. The girl was very surprised by these words and asked the guy what he really meant and what he was going to do with her. Meanwhile, a girl ran towards them and said that she didn't even have time to blink an eye and her friend disappeared. The girl said that she had to find Sasha at any cost because she always got into trouble. But at this moment, Su Yuan taught Sasha how to ride a bicycle and asked her to remember to balance and calm down while driving. The girl was surprised to see Sasha riding a bicycle and asked if everything was okay with her and if she was injured when she fell. Sasha said that everything was great for her and besides, it seems she learned to ride a bike on her own and all thanks to this guy. The girl said that she realized that she learned this thanks to her classmate Su Yuan. Sasha was surprised and asked if she really knew him. The girl said that Su Yuan was a bastard and this definition was too soft for him and she hated him. The girl thanked Su Yuan for teaching Sasha to ride a bike and said that it was time for them to go about their business. Sasha asked her friend to stay for a few minutes and approached Su Yuan and thanked him for his kindness and courage. Sasha said that before everyone protected her and that's why she was too soft, but today she attended a real strict training session for the first time. Sasha said that for the first time she experienced the feeling that she had learned something new on her own. The guy asked why she thanked him because she fell and got up herself, and without being afraid she climbed onto this bike herself. The guy told the girl that she was a stubborn fighter and said goodbye to her and asked her to never give up. The girl closely watched the guy and thought that Su Yuan turned out to be completely different from what everyone said about him. But suddenly, at that moment, a man on a motorcycle quickly drove up to them and suddenly dragged Sasha away with him. Sasha asked the girl named Sui not to chase them, but to immediately run away and immediately contact her father for help. Su Yuan wondered if this girl was Su Yi and noticed that her look was indeed very similar to her father's. And then suddenly another motorcyclist appeared behind Su Yi and wanted to hit the girl, but suddenly Su Yuan dealt a powerful blow to him and stopped him. The girl wondered if Su Yuan had managed to knock down the motorcyclist with a kick. She thought that she had no time to think and had to quickly go in pursuit. But Su Yuan stood in front of the motorcycle and said that he would go with her, but the girl thanked him for this but said that it did not concern him. The guy said that he could not allow her to expose herself to such danger alone because her safety now concerned him too. The girl was very surprised by the guy's answer and asked him who he was going to protect because she was very strong. Su Yuan said that he just thought that she didn't know how to drive a motorcycle. The girl listened to him and agreed with his proposal. Meanwhile, they reached a building together and disappeared behind the bushes. The guy said this was supposed to be the place. The girl asked if he wasn't curious. A schoolgirl was being stolen in broad daylight and the guy said that Sasha's family had money. Su Yi said that Sasha was always picked up after school by her driver, but today she begged him for a bike ride and it was all because of her. The guy asked the girl to forget about it and not worry about it and said that she was preventing him from thinking about the plan. The girl looked closely at the guy and said that she should have gone inside and he should have stayed here. But suddenly at that moment the guy ran away somewhere and the girl thought that Su Yuan had planned his wife after all. Suddenly, at that second, the girl saw that Su Yuan was easily dealing with all the guards and was very surprised. The girl thought that this couldn't have happened and how did he know what to do, and she thought that he was really telling the truth about the special agent. Having dealt with all the people, the guy resolutely walked towards the building. Su Yi asked him to wait for her because she wanted to go with him. Meanwhile, inside the building, the men were closely watching Sasha and their leader asked her if she had lost her fear. The leader listened to her and she asked him what she had to be afraid of because they kidnapped her for the money that her family controlled. Sasha told the bandits that they didn't have to be shy about the amount, because as long as they didn't touch it, she could guarantee that her dad wouldn't raise the alarm. The leader of the bandits was surprised by the girl's answer and asked her how she could guarantee this and how she knew it. Sasha said that the most important thing for her dad was her safety and they could harm her in case of alarm and therefore they had to return her safe. They had to receive their ransom and continue to go about their business, otherwise they would not have gotten out of this building alive. The man said that she spoke very smoothly and asked if her father had taught her this. Sasha said it was a good deal. And then Sasha added that since we were talking about the deal, she liked to repeat that doing business was as easy for her as breathing. The man smiled and said that it was a very pleasant cooperation that could please both parties. But suddenly at that moment a roar was heard in the room and everywhere it became very dusty, like during a bombing, and nothing was visible. At that very second, Su Yuan very quickly destroyed all the man's subordinates and began to fight him face to face. Sasha watched all this and thought that she could never have imagined that Su Yuan was such a cool guy. And at that moment Su Yi ran up to the girl and began to untie her hands. She asked Sasha how she felt. Sasha was very happy about her appearance and asked to answer her question and asked how they got into such territory. Su Yi said that they would talk after they got out of there and they needed to get out of there as soon as possible. But suddenly at that moment Su Yuan fell next to the girls and the man said that they would not get out of there. The man smiled and said that it was very unexpected because he was opposed by a bunch of impudent kids and they hoped to defeat him. At that very second, Su Yuan was not taken aback and asked the girls to run away from there and began to attack the man with lightning speed. The man easily defended himself from his blows and said that although the boy was dead, he had a first-class fighting technique. The man wondered who this guy reminded him of and asked Su Yuan who he was and where he got such a technique from. The guy answered and said that he was an ordinary high school student and he realized that the capabilities of this body were already at the limit. The man thought about the phantom, because he had once wounded him, but now he was not just a man, but had become a real devil. The man thought that he finally had a chance to fight with a boy who looked very much like a phantom and take revenge on him. The man began to attack the guy and asked him for forgiveness and said that his fighting technique was very familiar to him. But suddenly Su Yi intervened in their fight and struck the man. Su Yuan was surprised and asked the girl what she was doing. The guy got very angry with the girl and asked her why she was still there and told her to run away from there. Su Yi asked the guy not to tell her what to do because she could think for herself, and besides, it was not customary in the Su family to abandon a comrade in trouble. The guy remembered that his friend said that the Su family did not abandon their own, but after the death of his friend, Gu Cheng swore forever. He vowed that he would never involve others in his problems again and he didn't want to put his daughter in danger for anything. Su Yi said that she could protect herself because she promised her father, who went to fight, that she would take care of her loved ones. The man asked what kind of strange sobbing started now and said that he would now help them figure it out. After these words, the man attacked the girl and Su Yuan looked at her and realized that this was Su Heng's secret hand-to-hand combat technique. And then at the moment of the battle, Su Yuan looked at the girl and asked to listen to his command and ordered to use the Qing Yi curtain. The girl was very surprised how he could know the names of their family's secret techniques and said that it was none of his business. Su Yuan grabbed the man's hand with a stone grip and at that moment the girl dealt a strong blow to his head. Su Yi became very interested and thought that the guy really wanted to gain trust and get into her life in this way. The guy asked the girl to use a technique called the blue branch jump and the girl liked to listen to his commands. And ultimately, Using many techniques, Su-yi and Su-yuan managed to defeat this man and deal the final blow. The man thought that even though he lost to 2 schoolchildren, he had the feeling that time itself had turned against him. The girl looked intently at Su-yuan and for some reason she couldn't shake the feeling that he was exactly like her father. Su-yuan thought that he was still a weakling and with such a body he would not be able to protect anyone and he had to find a way to fix it. At that moment, Sasha ran up to the man and started kicking him and said that this was for him for kidnapping her, but suddenly she fell. But at that very second a man burst into the building and said that he had brought money and only asked to let his beloved daughter go. Seeing his daughter, the man immediately threw his case with money on the ground and ran to hug his beloved girl. The man ran up to Sasha and asked her how she felt and said that she scared her father to death. The man said that the guards were assigned to her for her safety and there was no need to deceive them and asked how he now explained himself to her mother. Sasha said that he had people who could take care of her and these were her faithful and devoted classmates. The man saw that there were a lot of bandits lying in this building and told his people that they needed to clean it up a little. 15 minutes later everything was clean there and the man thanked the 2 students and said that if it weren't for them, something terrible could have happened. Su-yi asked Uncle Ro to stop thanking them because Sasha was her best friend and besides, Su-yuan helped them a lot this time. The man approached the guy and asked if he was the same Su-yuan and said that Sasha did not like his constant guardianship. Therefore, Mr. Ro had one request for Su-yuan. He asked the guy to take over Sasha's protection within the walls of their school, not for free. But suddenly Su-yuan hugged Su-yi and said that the only person he would protect was her and her mother. But the girl pushed him away and called Su-yuan an idiot and said that he could go with his protection to hell because she didn't need him. Su-yuan looked at the girl and told Su-hang that this time he had a real opportunity to protect Su-yi and this became his meaning in life. And at that moment the man told Su-yuan that it was no longer childhood time and his parents were worried and asked him to give him a ride. But the guy refused the man and said that he had a couple of unfinished matters left and after that he left from there on a motorcycle. And after that, Sasha's dad said that this boy was not as simple as he seems and if only he would work for him, it would be very cool. Meanwhile, the guy reached his destination and thought that Su-yuan's house should be in this direction. And suddenly the same guy he beat with his gang appeared in front of Su-yuan. The guy said he finally found him. The guy told his brother Hu that it was the same guy and asked if he would help him teach this impudent guy a lesson. The man approached Su-yuan and took out a knife and said that his name was Brother Hu and he was the main man in this area. Brother Hu said that the guy should have knelt down and begged for his forgiveness and then he could think about letting him go. Su-yuan thought that now he was quite badly injured and they might be able to carry out their intention to deal with him. But the guy didn't understand why, instead of attacking him, they just stood and chatted with him and asked if they were stupid. Brother Hu stood in bewilderment and could not understand the guy's words, but his accomplice said that the guy called him a stupid person. Brother Hu got very angry and told the guy that he was the most educated person in their area and had a diploma. And then Brother Hu's subordinates began to attack the guy, but he easily knocked out one of them and took the gun from him. Su-yuan quickly finished off all his people and said that they bought traumatic guns and didn't learn how to shoot with them. Su-yuan looked at them menacingly and said that they would now experience the consequences of rash actions. The boy and Brother Hu looked at the guy in horror and Su-yuan said that they were completely sick. And then suddenly the guy pointed a gun at them and said that at least they would understand what was going on and would calm down. After that, the guy finally reached his destination and said that he had finally managed to find Su-yuan's house. The guy went inside and said that he had come home, but suddenly at that moment someone threw a pillow right in his face. Chen Zhizhan stood in front of the guy. It was a relative of Su-yuan's mother who, after her death, expressed a desire to shelter the boy. She took care of Su-yuan alone all this time, but the guy often ignored her, but she was the closest person to him. The woman sent him to hell but loved him with all her heart and the guy thought that it was a complex combination of emotions. The woman shouted at him and asked if he looked at his watch at least sometimes because she was very worried about him and could not find him. Chen Zhizhan looked at the guy and asked if he was injured and he was being bullied again by young idiots from the Western Street. The woman grabbed the guy by the hand and said that they would go there right away so that she could quickly deal with all of them. But suddenly the woman was very surprised because she pulled the guy as always, but this time he didn't move and stood still. Su Yuan thanked her for her concern and said that he was really very frail and he urgently needed to start training. The woman was very surprised to hear such words and, approaching him, she measured his temperature and asked if he was sick. The woman asked if he hit his head, but the guy said he was fine and didn't need medical attention. The guy thought what this woman needed and why she came at him, and maybe that's why he sent her. But the guy didn't feel any hostility towards her, and at that moment the woman unexpectedly lightly hit him on the head. The woman smiled and told the guy that this was her little punishment for his behavior and asked him to change. The woman asked him to just warn her next time because after all, they were not strangers. They could quarrel and make peace, but they always remained close people and his aunt could always come to his aid. The guy remembered that before they were taught not to feel cowardice and to remember that their comrade in arms will always cover their back. The guy looked intently at the woman and suddenly he called her a comrade in arms and said that he understood her order. The woman was very surprised and did not understand his reaction, but suddenly she threw objects at him and asked what kind of jokes they were. After that, morning came and the woman woke up Su Yuan and she wondered if this scoundrel was still lying around until late. But unexpectedly, when the woman entered his room, she noticed that he was not there, but there was incredible order there. After this, the woman went into the bathroom and, to her surprise, everything there was also sparkling clean and she didn't understand what was happening. The woman was wondering when this scoundrel managed to turn into a neat guy, and besides, he ran away early in the morning. Meanwhile, all the old people watched as Su Yuan trained and tried to do push-ups. But suddenly the guy fell to the ground and the men asked him to come to terms with the fact that he was so weak by nature. The men asked the guy why he tortured himself so much and they advised him to better sign up for training with pensioners. At this moment, Su Yuan looked at his watch and said that 30% of the training had already been successfully completed. The guy said goodbye to the old people and told them that they would meet again tomorrow. The old men continued to mock him. After that, the guy returned home and the woman asked him where he had been and he said that he was at morning training. Meanwhile, they sat down to eat and the woman asked him what he was waiting for and Su Yuan said that he was waiting for the command to start eating. And after the woman allowed him to start eating, he began to eat very quickly and finished it in just 3 minutes. After morning breakfast, the guy quickly changed clothes and ran to school. The woman thought that this boy was especially strange today. Meanwhile, Su Yi was standing at school waiting for Su Yuan. She told the other guys not to turn around if they didn't want to get it from her. Meanwhile, the schoolchildren were wondering where their beloved Sasha was and they thought that she was on vacation. After that, Su Yi noticed Su Yuan and immediately pushed him against the wall and asked the other guys what they were staring at. Su Yi asked Su Yuan to answer her question and asked how he knew the names of their family's secret techniques. The guy said that Su Heng taught him this. The girl was very surprised and asked the guy if he really knew her father. The guy said that her father was his comrade in arms. Su Yuan said that her father often helped him in everything and during their training he taught him various techniques. But suddenly Su Yi started laughing and didn't believe his words. She asked if they also went through baptism of fire together. The girl told Su Yuan that he was delusional because her father was a specialist in cargo transportation and besides, Su Yuan was much younger than her father. Su Yuan listened carefully to the girl and said that everything was so and he told her the whole truth and they really served together. The girl said that of course it was stupid, but deep down she wanted to believe him and told him that she had gone to her lessons. The guy wanted to tell the girl the whole truth about Su Heng, but she said that she was already late for classes and she didn't have time for it. The girl thanked the guy for yesterday's events and asked him not to be shy and to contact her if he needed help. After that, unexpectedly during class, Su Yuan came to Su Yi and stood in front of her. The girl felt very embarrassed by this. Su Yi got very angry and told Su Yuan that he should have gone to the next class and asked why he came there. The guy said that the enemy could appear at any moment and he had to always be ready to protect her at any moment. But after his words, the girl screamed at him and asked him to wake up and asked what phantom enemies he had invented for himself. At that moment the teacher heard their conversation and got very angry and threw his chalk at them and asked what they were doing in his class. But Su Yuan defended the girl and told the man that he was a teacher and that's why he was just warning him now. The guy said that if the assassination attempt on Su Yi happens again, he will end it and, fortunately for him, it turned out to be just a piece of chalk. But unexpectedly at that moment the teacher kicked the guy and told him to get out of his class, otherwise he threatened to finish him off. Su Yuan thought that after all Su Heng was right and it was easier to negotiate with a terrorist than with a teenager. But then the teacher approached him and said that it seemed that Su Yuan was not interested in their group and asked if he wanted to go to the advanced class. The guy thought that it seemed that the advanced class was the same class that Su Yi studied in and he wanted to go to this class. And then suddenly the guy stood up and said that the teacher was right and he wanted to go to another group to develop. The teacher said that he set ambitious goals, but he had to do well in all subjects in order to transfer there. But suddenly Su Yuan came to the board and began to solve complex examples without errors, and the teacher thought that it was possible. But then another teacher asked the guy if he could solve the math problems and Su Yuan thought that it was similar to the sniper's problem. Su Yuan stood up and gave an example in various weapons and it was not difficult for him to solve this problem correctly. The teacher was very surprised by his answer because it was correct and Su Yuan thought that he really liked such tasks. And after that, Su Yuan went to the board and began to solve complex mathematical equations and all his answers turned out to be correct. All his classmates were shocked by this and asked him to tell him about his preparatory courses because it was cool. Su Yuan thought that it turns out that the schoolboy and the military man had a lot in common and they had a very similar program. But at that moment, Su Yuan suddenly heard a scream and realized that it was Su Yi's voice and he immediately jumped out of the office window. The students were shocked by Su Yuan's action because he instantly jumped from the third floor and it was very cool. Meanwhile, Su Yi's friends tickled her and she laughed non-stop and said that she was very afraid of tickling. But unexpectedly at that moment Su Yuan ran up to them and kicked the girls with all his might so that they flew away in the other direction from this. Su Yi was shocked and asked the guy what he was doing, but suddenly he took her device and threw it aside. The guy asked the girl to quickly lie down on the ground and not move and wanted to keep her as safe as possible because he thought that she was in danger. Meanwhile, the device landed on the ground and broke into pieces, and all the students passing by were in shock and did not understand what was happening there. Su Yuan thought that this was strange and why didn't this bomb explode. Su Yi screamed and ordered to explain to her immediately what was happening there. And then Su Yi's friend came up to the guy and said that it was her neck massage machine and it was quite expensive. After that, Su Yuan was scolded by the teacher and asked if he had deliberately broken his classmate's valuable thing and jumped from the third floor. But Su Yuan waited for an order from the teacher and said that for him there were no insurmountable obstacles. The teacher did not understand his behavior and Su Yi asked her not to pay attention to him and said that he had watched action films. The woman asked the guy to write an explanatory note for his behavior and reimburse the cost of the broken device, but the guy said that he would help her prepare a secret theft. The woman was very surprised by his words and Su Yi said that the guy meant to organize a surprise date and that it was her order. But Su Yuan said that he meant to organize a secret theft, because it was difficult to carry out theft within the city limits and he wanted to help her with it. Su Yi was angry at his words and the guy didn't understand why she said about a date and he was waiting for an order to start work. Meanwhile, the bell rang and Su Yi said that they had to go and she said that she herself would lend the guy money. The teacher watched them in surprise and did not understand what kind of theft Su Yuan was talking about and what it was all about. Meanwhile, after finishing all the lessons, the guy walked the girl to her house and did not leave her for a second. Su Yi asked the guy if he was now going to walk her home every day because she didn't need it at all. The guy thought that last time all he knew about Su Yi and her mother was that they died and he didn't even manage to find their bodies. The investigation led him to the customer and he had to find out where their bodies disappeared and who was involved in this whole matter. But in the end, he still couldn't find out where they had gone or who had killed them, and he was furious about it. And then suddenly the door opened in front of them and Su Yi's mother said that it seemed like she heard a voice from her precious daughter. The girl told her mother that she asked her 1,000 times not to open the door so abruptly because she could break it. Mom said that next time she would be the most attentive and asked her daughter to hug her because she missed her very much. Su Yuan watched all this and thought that apparently it was Su Heng's wife and it seems that this woman's name was Ruan Feng. And then the woman noticed the guy and said that it looked like her daughter had already grown up and asked if they really went home with the boy. Su Yi asked her mother to stop talking about it and the woman asked the guy to come into the house and said that they had something to talk about. The woman told her daughter that she had not yet drunk her coffee, without a cup of coffee she had no inspiration. So the woman asked her daughter to run for 2 glasses and suddenly slammed the door in her face. The woman told the guy that Su Hang liked to repeat that he had never met anyone with intuition like hers. And she added that, although she didn't know why, the guy had exactly the same look as her beloved husband. And then suddenly the woman looked closely at the guy and asked if he was from her husband's company. After that, Su Yuan continued to follow Su Yi and she thought about what they talked about yesterday with her mother and did she really approve of all his farewells? Meanwhile, the guy recalled that Su Yi's mother asked him that the other day his consciousness entered the body of this boy. The woman asked him if he was really there to protect her and her daughter and prevent them from being killed by terrorists. Su Yuan said that she understood everything correctly and asked if she didn't believe him because he told her the honest truth. The woman said that her husband was a member of the counter-terrorism group and would hardly allow a schoolboy to know so many things. The woman said she didn't care much about her safety, but her daughter could use some extra protection from him. But at that moment Su Yi noticed that the guy was distracted and realized that this was her only chance to escape. The girl was not taken aback and immediately ran to the side and jumped over the wall. Su Yuan realized that he had made a mistake. The guy couldn't grab her at the last moment and she ran somewhere to the side. The guy asked her to stop and listen to him. But the girl asked if he was really going to protect her and said that first he had to try to catch up with her. The girl ran several kilometers and noticed that the guy was not at all behind her and chased her to the end. The girl looked at the guy and said goodbye to the faithful guard and said that he would never have caught up with her. The girl broke away from him and she was wondering how he got out of this situation, because the one who could catch up with her had not yet been born. The girl walked into the store and told Ling Ai that she had come to see her and Ling Ai noticed that Su Yi was in a great mood today. Ling Ai asked the girl to tell her about what interesting happened to her, that she was all glowing with happiness. Su Yi told the girl that she had just broken away from one nasty guy and that's why her mood immediately lifted. And then suddenly Su Yi changed clothes and Ling Ai asked who dared to offend their girl and now she was very curious. Ling Ai really wanted to meet this guy, but Su Yi said that he did not deserve such an honor and she greeted the guest. But unexpectedly at that moment Su Yuan came into the store and said that he had finally managed to find the girl after a long chase. And then Ling Ai approached the guy and asked him to drink water. But Su Yuan said that he was on a mission and he was forbidden to accept food from strangers. Su Yi asked how he managed to find this place because she deliberately confused him and only her mother knew that she worked there part-time. Su Yuan said that it was not difficult for him to analyze because it was the simplest task of tracking down a target. First he analyzed her behavior pattern and then chose the right moment for surveillance and then he asked all the neighbors about her. The guy managed to reconstruct her whole day bit by bit and eventually he figured out where she hid from him. The girl was very surprised and asked the guy where he got her photo from and how he was able to get it because it was very difficult. Su Yuan said that her mother gave him the photo. The girl wondered why her mother gave her photo to strangers. And then Ling Ai became very interested. Was it really this guy that Su Yi told her about and he was quite an interesting guy. Ling Ai said that today was Saturday and there were a lot of people and they didn't have time, so she asked Su Yuan to help them. Su Yuan immediately agreed with the girl and said that if Su Yi was in his field of vision, then he was ready to get to work. Su Yi thought that they could use some help, but she was wondering how he would wear their dress and Ling Ai asked her not to talk about it. And then suddenly Su Yuan appeared in front of the girls in a girl's outfit and Su Yi started laughing and said that it was just hilarious. Su Yuan was not particularly bothered by what he was dressed in, but what bothered him was that the size was a little small for him. And then suddenly Su Yuan stood in front of the front door and greeted all the customers in this funny pink outfit. Su Yi thought that it was their idea and they had to solve this problem and she took him away from there and told him to stay away from the clients. The girl told the guy that his task was to prepare drinks and she showed him how to do it and said that she would not repeat it. Su Yuan told the girl that she should not have been in such a crowded place and it was dangerous and she should have stayed at home. Su Yi did not believe in his nonsense about the kidnapping, and besides, she independently wanted to find her place in the world and take care of her family. Su Yuan remembered that Su Hang showed him a photo of his daughter and said that at the age of 3 she already knew how to make coffee. The guy remembered that Su Hang wanted to retire quickly so that he could be with his girls all the time. And then the guy looked closely at the girl and said that her father Su Heng would be proud of her now because she was smart. And then Su Yi asked the guy not to talk to her like an adult and it's better to tell her whether he understood how to prepare drinks. And then Su Yi thought that Su Yuan looked like a very reliable person and she thought that yesterday she went to bed very late. At that moment, Su Yuan started preparing the drinks and everything turned out perfectly on the first try and it was great. Su Yi thought that this couldn't be true and asked if he had made milkshakes before, but the guy said that it was his first time doing this. And then Ling Ai approached them and asked her to bring a cocktail to the third table. Su Yi immediately brought the man his cocktail. But unexpectedly the man took one sip of this drink and suddenly spat all the contents in the waitress's face. The man asked for forgiveness and said that it was impossible to drink. Su Yi asked him for forgiveness and said that she would bring him another cocktail. The girl immediately grinned evilly at Su Yuan and the guy realized that he had put too much dry cream in this cocktail. Meanwhile, after all these events, Sasha was skiing and she suddenly fell and said that it was very painful. Su Yi asked why she was doing this and Sasha said that she could handle a bicycle and thought that she could handle skates. Sasha looked at Su Yuan and said that when he was nearby, nothing bad could happen. Su Yi looked at the guy and thought that it was indecent because he followed her every time and protected her in all situations. And then suddenly the girl slipped and began to fall, but Su Yi saved Sasha from falling and said that she could completely trust her. Su Yi asked Sasha to take a break and said that a chocolate bar was hidden in her cabinet just for such an occasion. Sasha said that everything was fine and she wanted to continue training, and Su Yi asked her to wait there until she returned. Sasha thought that she was capable of learning to skate and wanted to surprise Su Yi, but suddenly she fell straight onto the ice. For some reason, Sasha couldn't even manage to just stand on her feet and nothing was working out for her and she was already starting to despair. But Su Yuan approached her and said that she had problems with her sense of balance and her center of gravity was unstable, and besides, she was throwing her limbs in different directions. Sasha agreed with the guy and said that it was all about her arms and legs and she was clumsy and she wanted to change that. She did different sports, but the more she tried, the more stupid she felt and she was very ashamed. In the end, the girl got fed up with everything because everyone was just trying to take care of her and didn't think of helping her. And then Su Yuan asked the recruit to remember that excuses were for weaklings and whiners who didn't really want to develop. And then the guy asked the girl if she had succeeded in anything and she said that she had succeeded in several things. The guy said that it was great and asked if she could do everything right the first time and if it was easy. But at that moment Sasha's bodyguard came to them and told the lady that he had finally found her and they were in trouble. Sasha asked the man to calm down first and explain everything to her normally. The man said that it was all about the agreement with the American company Angsai. Their general director, out of the blue, took charge of finances and personally led the delegation and they were given only 3 days to find solutions. Sasha thought and decided that they would do this. For 2 days they had to entertain them to the fullest so that everything would be at the highest level. And the negotiations should have been postponed until the very last minute and stood our ground and strive to leave everything as before. Sasha said that they themselves started this game and now it was their turn to explain to them that this agreement was more important for them. The man listened carefully to the girl and told the lady that he understood everything and immediately went to fulfill her demands. All people understood who was really in charge of all this, because Sasha was small but she already had an iron character. Sasha thought that she was not originally born with such a gift and that she gradually developed in this matter over time. As a child, Sasha read and studied everything carefully, she was the most active and youngest student in all lessons and it was great. The girl thought that she needed to shake herself and try again, but suddenly nothing worked for her and she fell again. But then Su Yi approached Sasha and she began to teach the girl to skate, and until the very end she believed that she would succeed. Sasha said that it was very cool and she ran up to Su Yi and hugged her. She said that she was able to learn to skate. Su Yi was very happy about this and said that their Sasha could handle everything and she just had to believe in herself. Sasha said that even though Su Yuan said that he didn't need gratitude, she still thanked him for everything. Sasha said that as soon as Su Yuan appeared next to her, everything immediately began to work out for her and she was not afraid of anything. Su Yi was very surprised by her words and asked the girl if she didn't teach her to skate and believe in herself. Afterwards, Su Yi walked along the street and noticed Su Yuan behind her. she had already begun to get used to the fact that he was constantly next to her. But at that moment they noticed some guy who was offending a defenseless boy and mocking him in every possible way. The boy could not answer them in any way because he was alone and there were several hooligans and, moreover, they were armed. And then one of the hooligans wanted to attack the boy and finish him off, but suddenly he received a strong blow to the face from Sue. The girl asked the guys who they thought they were, did they really think that they could offend people weaker than them? The girl looked carefully at the guys and remembered that they were high school students from the 9th quarter. Yuan wanted to intervene in the conflict, but the girl stopped him and said that she herself would be responsible for her actions. The gang leader wanted to teach this girl a lesson and asked his men to attack her and beat her without any mercy. The girl began to use her skills and easily beat one guy after another, and it was not difficult for her at all. But suddenly one of the guys pulled out a knife and the girl thought what could she do because she had no armed opponents yet. But then Yuan turned to her and asked her to remain calm and under no circumstances panic or be afraid of the enemy. Yuan asked the girl to monitor her breathing and assess the situation, and then determine the enemy's weak point and strike. Yuan told the girl that she would succeed and she just had to believe in her strength and impeccable skills. The girl looked back and noticed the enemy's weak point and, quickly approaching him, delivered a powerful blow to his stomach. After that, she also calmed down and found the weak point of all people and easily dealt with all of them and knocked them out. The girl asked the guy if it was cool and Yuan said that it was pretty good and she was smart. But the bully said that he was not finished yet and wanted to attack the girl but immediately received an instant blow from Yuan. The injured boy looked at Yuan's attacks and couldn't believe that it was him because he was the weakest guy in school. Sue said that after this they could no longer annoy her classmates and next time they would not get off so easily. The guy was surprised when Yuan managed to become so strong and thought about asking him to become his protector. The guy approached Yuan and asked him not to be offended by him and to leave all the differences between them in the past. The guy said that Yuan was really cool and asked the guy to take him under his wing and protect him in difficult times. The guy asked them if they really decided that if they beat up these hooligans, then they would be happy in the future and they would be happy. The guy said that they beat up the older guys from the 9th district and their leaders had to come for them and finish the job they started. Yuan was surprised and asked why he decided so and Sue said that this guy was clearly hit hard on the head and he was not himself. The guy smiled and said that he had his own sources and they clearly did not expect that he knew everything about all the people. Yuan thought that there was nothing more important than the necessary information, especially in light of recent events, and they had to be prepared for anything. Yuan didn't understand who this guy was, but he agreed to teach him some techniques so that he would be prepared for such troubles. The guy thought that Yuan was really mocking him or that he really didn't remember who he was and what he did. The guy said that his parents made a mistake and raised him to be too careful and he was afraid of something all his life. The guy was most afraid that he could be left alone and this greatly influenced his character and he grew up to be a coward. Over time, he began to please his offenders and they began to really like his sycophancy and they did not touch him. They even started taking the guy with them to their business, but deep down he didn't want to hurt anyone and become like them. The guy said that it was not so easy to do because these people were very strong and could cause him a lot of suffering. The guy said that he couldn't look into Yuan's eyes because he saw in them how insignificant he really was. The guy thought that such a brave guy like Yuan really looked at him as an equal person. And then the guy burst into tears and asked for forgiveness for what he had done and said that he would not disappoint them in any way. Yuan told the guy that he believed him, but the girl thought that it was all very strange and for some reason she had a bad feeling. And then the gang leader called his boss and said that they had just been beaten by some schoolchildren and they did not respect him at all. The boss said that she really wanted to take revenge on them and said that she would come there and sort out this whole matter herself. After these events, one early morning, Yuan continued to train in the park and tried to improve his skills. The old men approached the guy and said that he was great because he was not lazy and trained every day and the result was obvious. Meanwhile, Yuan finished his training and collected his things and wanted to return home but suddenly someone blocked his way. This was a girl and she said that she was the leader of the 9th district and her name was Ining. She noticed that the guy was always on the alert. For a long time the guy couldn't remember which gang this girl was referring to and in the end he remembered about those guys he beat. Li Yingying said that she came there to explain to him that it was better for him not to mess with the 9th district. And immediately after these words, the girl wanted to strike a powerful blow to the guy, but Su Yuan at the last moment managed to dodge the blow. The girl said that no teenager had ever been able to cope with her and, congratulating him, said that he was the first. Su Yuan noticed that the girl's movements were very precise and furious, and besides, she had excellent technique. And besides, this girl had enormous strength and her speed was beyond praise, and he realized that she was very strong. Su Yuan resisted her blows and at the moment of the fight thought that for some reason he did not remember her combat school. Su Yuan wanted her to continue fighting and show everything she was capable of and help him figure out his technique. And suddenly, in the midst of their battle, Su Yi and Sasha appeared there. Su Yi told the guy that he was late for class and the guy said that he would be there in 5 minutes. Sasha was surprised and asked Su Yi if Su Yuan was really fighting with some girl and she didn't even want to separate them. Su Yi said that she did not want to interfere in his personal affairs and besides, everything was fine with him and she believed in him. But when Su Yi stopped, she suddenly thought that Su Yuan would never willingly enter into a fight first. Li Yingying asked the guy why he was hanging and wanted to attack him, but the guy grabbed her hand and put her on the ground. And then Li Yingying remembered that in childhood everyone told her that she was very weak and that she was weaker than the boys. She was always told that girls were always dependent on boys and could not defeat them. The girl told everyone to shut their mouths. Li Yingying thought that she would someday prove to all of them that they were wrong and she wanted to achieve everything on her own. And then suddenly Li Yingying's mood immediately dropped and she said that she was still a girl, so he managed to defeat her. Li Yingying said that he was stronger than her but their speed and skill were on par, and how was he able to take her down despite her defense? The guy said that she had little combat experience and did not know how to control herself and exposed her weaknesses. And then Su Yuan told the girl that when she started a fight, there should only be a fight in her heart and nothing else. And then Li Yingying came to her senses and said that it was strange because he did not look like a thick-headed bully as her assistants told her. Sasha told the girl that the guys from the 9th district liked to lie and they themselves were the first to bully and threaten them. And Sasha had irrefutable evidence, and Sasha showed the girl a recording on which it was clear that the boys themselves threatened the schoolchildren. Sasha smiled and asked Li Yingying if everything had now fallen into place. Li Yingying got angry and said how could her people lie to her about this. Su Yi said that she was glad that they figured everything out. Sasha said that she didn't like it when her friends were insulted. Su Yi was very happy that she had such a good-natured friend and she hugged the girl and said that she was the best. And then Li Yingying felt very awkward and she said that it was her mistake and she didn't check everything in time. The girl asked Su Yuan for forgiveness and said that she would now take better care of her people and they would not bother them anymore. Su Yi asked Li Yingying not to do that because everyone had made mistakes and besides, she was very brave for admitting her mistakes. Sasha said that her friend noticed everything correctly and it was not surprising to her that Li Yingying with such a character kept the entire area in fear. Li Yingying wanted to somehow make up for the inconvenience they caused and asked permission for her to become their faithful friend. All the girls were very surprised to hear such words and wondered if this would bring even more problems. Meanwhile, after these events, they reached school and Su Yi finally exhaled because they were almost late for class. And at that moment the teacher came into the room and asked all the students to sit in their places and said that he had an announcement for them. The teacher said that a new girl had transferred to their class and he asked him to love and favor this sweet girl. The girl introduced herself and said that her name was Li Yingying and she transferred to their school from the 9th quarter. Su Yi was very surprised how she managed to transfer to their class so quickly because not even one day had passed since their meeting. And then Li Yingying approached the guy who was sitting next to Su Yuan and told him to get up from there and look for a new place. The girl sat next to Su Yuan and thought that she would make every effort to make him become her boyfriend. After class, the guy approached Su Yuan and said that according to rumors, Li Yingying transferred to their class and wanted to become his girlfriend. But Su Yuan only said that they met her in the morning and fought, and in the end he emerged victorious from this massacre. The guy thought that he had missed a lot of interesting things this morning and he added that Li Yingying was not the type to give up so easily. The guy wanted to enlighten Su Yuan and said that the 9th district was the most lawless quarter of their city and that the local hooligans came from there. This quarter had its own rules and there were many clans and factions that were ready to kill anyone who came into their territory. And Ining was considered the queen of all this chaos. She was the main boss and the ringleader of all these hooligans. She kept not only the entire school in fear but the entire neighborhood, and all the people were very afraid of her and did not want to deal with her. This girl ruled very harshly and boldly, and no one would dare to start any business without the permission of the queen. Her power was great and she controlled many people, and therefore various people appeared who used her name. Yuan listened carefully to the guy and said that he understood that there was real power behind her and thanked the guy for such information. Meanwhile, Ining told the girls everything, and Yi asked why she wanted to date him and was it really only because of this that she transferred to their school. Ining said that Yuan was the first to see the vulnerable girlish soul behind her masculine character and she had long dreamed of just such a guy. Sasha intervened in their conversation and asked for forgiveness from Ining, told her that Yuan treated everyone like that and had such a manner of communication. Ining asked to explain to her why no one here took him seriously because he was really strong and the school should have been afraid of him. Yi said that there was no need to compare their school with the 9th district and there were no bosses in their school. Meanwhile, Yuan was in conflict with some guy and asked him to throw the garbage into the trash can because the teacher gave them such an order. Yuan said that the teacher's word was law for them. If he forgot about it, then he could write down all the rules in a notebook. The guy got very angry at these words and said that now he himself would throw him in the trash for such wise and interesting advice. But then suddenly Ining grabbed this guy by the hair and dragged him somewhere to the side and said that she would deal with him. A few minutes later, this guy, covered in beatings, approached Yuan and said that he was ready to start sorting the garbage. Ining told Yuan that if he became her boyfriend, she would help him establish his own rules in this school. But Yuan began to write down in a notebook that second-grade student Ining had used force on the guy and asked to take action. The girl was very surprised by the guy's behavior and asked why he did this to her and was it really all because of Yi. Ining said that she realized this a long time ago when he refused to take on the duties of an attendant and always followed on her heels. Ining said that she always liked healthy competition and sooner or later he would still start dating her. But the guy refused this and said that he needed to protect the object and was not interested in anything else. Yuan thought and told the girl that everything that was happening around him was absolutely indifferent to him. Ining asked who he was protecting and said that in her family all the men, starting with her grandfather, became military men. And Ining saw from early childhood how her grandfather cared for his fellow soldiers one-on-one as if they were members of his family. Her grandfather kept repeating that the war could not be won alone and in war the most important thing was to have a strong rear. And so the girl told Yuan that if he was protecting someone, then from today on she wanted to protect him. Meanwhile, a guy in a military uniform was talking on the phone and a man asked him if their sister had changed schools again. He said that according to rumors it was about some guy and the man asked if they had gone crazy and which guy they were talking about. The guy asked his interlocutor not to get angry and said that first he would try to dig up a dossier on him. And then another guy grabbed the phone from him and told the man that he himself had to fly there and deal with this guy. Meanwhile, Yi invited all the people to visit the slot machines and, without thinking about anything, have a blast like in childhood. The girl finally sat down on the bench and thought that she would finally be able to rest a little time because she was very tired. But suddenly a guy in a monster costume approached her and asked how many times he told her to avoid crowded places. And when he took off the mask it turned out to be Yuan and he said that it was impossible to breathe in this suit and this made his task more difficult. And at that moment Yi noticed that her father came to Sasha and he gave his daughter a huge stuffed rabbit. Yuan asked Yi what she was staring at and she said that one day her father came home for the weekend with a hare that he made with his own hands. And then he told his beloved daughter that he would bring him such a gift every year and watch her smile every time. Many years ago, Heng injured his finger and his friend asked him what he was doing and was he really preparing a bomb disguised as a doll? The man said that his daughter asked her daddy to make a bunny and he never wanted to disappoint her. The man showed his friend a bunny and asked the guy to appreciate his handiwork because the bunny was handsome. Yuan stood and listened attentively to her story and he also missed his best friend Heng. Yi asked how could he not return home and didn't he really want to meet his beloved daughter and her beloved wife. Tears involuntarily rolled down from Su Yi's eyes and she thought about it and said that her father was a hero and could not do this to them. Su Yuan said that before he could not understand why people thought about their loved ones even before death, but while protecting her he understood how her father felt. But suddenly at that moment the girl got mad and asked what kind of nonsense he was spouting again and was he really back to his old ways again. Su Yi said that if there was no one to give her a gift, then she would go there herself and win a great gift for herself. Su Yi wanted to win a toy from the machine and she said that the grip was very loose and she couldn't hold anything at all. Su Yuan watched her and thought that the grabber obeyed her movements and if she stood up a little and shook the device, then she would have succeeded. The guy asked the girl to try again, but she asked him if he was blind and didn't see that the device wasn't working. After that, Su Yuan wanted to try to pull out the toy himself and asked the girl to trust her and she agreed with him. The guy squeezed the toy tightly and only after that he began to swing this machine with all his strength and everything worked out for him. As a result, Su Yuan managed to win the toy and he gave it to Su Yi and said that he tried to get it just for her sake. Su Yi looked intently at the guy and she demanded an explanation from Su Yuan and whether he understood that it was impossible to do this. But suddenly the girl was very happy and told the guy that today she would pretend that she didn't see anything. But at that moment a man in military uniform was watching them and he said how dare this guy communicate with Su Yi and their family wouldn't leave it that easily. After all these events, the guy took the girl to her house and Su Yi said goodbye to him and said that they would see each other tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, two men were watching Su Yuan and they noticed that this guy was finally left alone and it was good. The man said that this guy would now get what he deserves for deceiving cute girls and misleading them. The men were watching Su Yuan and one of them was surprised and asked if they had passed by this sign before. And then the men realized that all this time the guy had been deceiving them and they ran after him and wondered if he had escaped from them. The man said that he had the feeling that an experienced intelligence officer was acting against them and it was strange. And then his friend became interested in how a young boy could pull this off and the man said that he could ask him about it himself. And then the man concentrated and wanted to use his detection power, but he couldn't find this guy. And then suddenly, Su Yuan appeared behind him and left a small scratch on his neck. The man was very surprised by this. His accomplice ran towards Su Yuan and said that this guy not only managed to hide from their detection system, but he was cunningly able to get behind them. But at that moment, Su Yuan pointed a gun at them and the man asked if he was going to scare them with this toy. But Su Yuan immediately ran up to the guy and pointed a knife at him. The second guy asked him to stop and said that they were Li Ining's brothers. Su Yuan listened to them carefully and asked if they could confirm their identity so that he would let them go. The guy took out his military ID and said that his name was Li Ling and the guy he was holding hostage was called Li Qi. Su Yuan told them that their pupils were not dilated. Li Qi asked him if he was also a military man and he agreed. Su Yuan thought and immediately put his finger on his throat and said that he felt changes in his pulse and this meant that they were not lying to him. Su Yuan said that their behavior betrayed them as military men and he at first thought that they were retirees who had retrained as killers. But the guy quickly realized that their main target was not Su Yi, so he decided to do them a favor and spare them. The brothers were very surprised by the words they heard and asked the guy if he had done them a favor and where they had miscalculated. Su Yuan said that during the counterattack he moved secretly and he did not even give away his smell, so he asked how they managed to detect him then. Li Ling said that since childhood he had developed intuition and all his six senses, but Su Yuan said that this was nonsense. Su Yuan said that if they didn't want to admit it then it wasn't necessary but he asked them to understand and not follow him anymore. Li Qi said that this time they missed something and this guy took advantage of the moment and should have given him credit. Li Ling said that this guy was no mistake and asked his brother if they were thinking about the same thing and if they agreed. Li Qi said that his brother said everything correctly and they had to find a way to get this guy at any cost. Meanwhile, after this at school, Su Yi talked about how sports competitions were supposed to start at school in a couple of days. People asked her to prepare a list of participants and she asked if anyone wanted to take part in this competition and test their strength. Li Ining asked why the girl was making such a fuss. It was just a regular list for a sports competition. The girls talked about how last year they screwed up on all fronts and took first place from the bottom in all sports. They thought about not participating in competitions in order to somehow preserve the honor of their group and not become a laughing stock. But then Su-yi looked at Su-yuan and asked the whole class what about him because he was very athletic. Sasha agreed with her and said that he was even able to introduce her to the sport and it was not difficult for him to organize training. Su-yi agreed that her friend was talking business and besides, she herself also dreamed of doing it herself. And then Su-yi said that this would have a bad effect on her plans, because his behavior was in no way suitable for this. But Sasha said that if Su-yuan agrees, then it's still worth giving him a chance and Su-yi agreed with her friend. And Su-yuan thought that he needed help to protect Su-yi and that he could use the resources of the entire class. And after that, suddenly Su-yuan walked up to his classmate and asked him to sign up for a short distance running. The guy said that after school she had no free time, but Su-yuan was ready to train him after all the work. Su-yuan stood near the school and waited all day long and Sasha came up to him and said that he had waited in vain, he wouldn't have come anyway. Su-yuan said that his pupils were not dilated and his breathing was normal and he was definitely telling the truth. Sasha said that he used an excuse to get away from him and in fact he was thinking about completely different things. Su-yuan was very surprised because he didn't understand why he had to do this and why he couldn't just say it. Sasha said that no one liked open conflicts and no one needed an extra headache. Su-yuan thought that when he grew up everything was simpler, white seemed white and black seemed black. And then Sasha said that she learned this science at home and it was a necessary aspect of successful negotiations and no one usually expressed their true intentions. The girl said that hints and omissions had long become her faithful companions, although sometimes she wanted to take a break from all this. But Sasha said that Su-yuan was different and never lied to her, so she loved spending time with him. Su-yuan thought that this was bad luck and did not know what to do next because he thought that this could greatly harm their mission. But suddenly Sasha asked the guy not to worry and said that she had a great idea and found a way out of the situation. The guy was still talking about how he didn't have the opportunity to train because he had a serious knee injury. Su-yuan looked at Sasha and said that he was almost sure that this guy was not lying and was telling the truth. But Sasha told the guy that the knee injury was an injury that he could consider received from kindergarten. And then the guy smiled and said that his mother insisted that he spend all his energy only on studying and nothing more. Sasha said that in fact he didn't care about all the achievements of their group except his studies. But the guy got angry and Sasha said that she only made small adjustments and brought him closer to the truth. The guy said that they had already got him and he did not want to participate in these competitions under any circumstances. Su-yuan asked him why she didn't want to do this and the guy approached him and said that he was very afraid of losing. The guy said that they were the most advanced class and had to be in first place in everything. The guy said that if it were the same this year, the whole school would start laughing at them and they would become losers. But Su-yuan told the guy that he had been watching him all this time and in order not to be late for school, he flew there like a bullet in the morning. It was exactly 100 meters from the guy's house to the school, and he ran the entire distance in just 12 seconds. Su-yuan told the guy that after a couple of practices he would definitely win the prize, so he chose him. The guy wondered if he could really become a winner and they began to look at him with admiration and be proud of him. The guy told Su-yuan that he really pissed him off and that's why he wanted to try to participate in this competition. But the guy had one condition: he didn't want to go to competitions until he felt the benefits of training, and he ran away from there. Su-yuan wondered why this guy blushed and ran away from there and Sasha said that it was beyond her understanding. After this, Su-yuan was very surprised and said that the world of their high school was full of mysteries that needed to be solved. After this, Sasha told Su-yi that it was a pity there was no way to register all the people for the competition, but there were still people willing. Su-yi was surprised and asked how they pulled it off. Sasha said that it was the merit of Su-yuan and he determined everyone's abilities. And then Sasha suddenly said that she also signed up, because how long could she support Su-yi from the podium? And then Su-yuan said that if there were no questions on the list, then he needed a place to organize the training process. Su-yi was surprised and asked what was so bad about their site. Su-yuan said that the site was too small for his technique. And then Sasha asked the guy not to worry and said that she would take care of the site herself and everything would be done to the highest standard. And suddenly, 2 days later, the students noticed that a new and huge sports ground had been built at the school. Sasha said that in this sports complex there were several thousand square meters for complete freedom. And besides, This gym was equipped with various equipment for all sports, because she tried to take into account all the recommendations. And besides, Sasha took it upon herself to invite the chef and nutritionist of the official team, and they prepared only the best dishes. Also, massage specialists help to recover after super intense workouts so that in no case did the training affect your studies. And to make it convenient for them to get there, Sasha booked a room in a 5-star hotel and a transfer to school for each of them. All the students could not believe their ears, and Sasha now asked them to start training without further ado. The guy from school smiled and told Sasha that training in such conditions was a joy and he wanted to start training as soon as possible. But after a few hours, that same guy was very tired and wanted to finish these grueling exercises as soon as possible. All the students found it very difficult and they complained that these trainings were very difficult and they could no longer stand it. The schoolboy threw his dumbbells and said it was a mockery and it looked like they were preparing for a triathlon. Sasha said that Su Yuan's training was very intense, and Sui noticed that the schoolchildren could not withstand the stress. The guy from the school thought that Su Yuan started it all and dragged them to training and also organized such a training place. The guy was wondering where Su Yuan himself was because he saw his frail body and let him try these exercises himself. And suddenly at that moment the guy noticed that Su Yuan was training in the next room with tennis balls. Sui looked at him and asked what was happening there. Sasha said that Su Yuan gave her exact instructions on what and how to do, but she didn't know why it was necessary. Meanwhile, Su Yuan recalled that during his war years he trained his reaction and cut flying balls. And then a guy approached Su Yuan and said that he could not imagine that he was capable of coming up with such strange training. The guy said that it was better they should have gone and had fun because most likely he would not have returned home alive. And now Su Yuan realized that the physical characteristics of this body were improving. I still lacked flexibility. And so one conclusion suggested itself: Su Yuan could train more to become more resilient. Meanwhile, Ining approached all the students and asked why they stood up because they were still weak. Ining said that no one would dare to mock Su Yuan, and if they gave their all 300%, they would succeed. After this, the guys were inspired and thought that if Su Yuan could become like this thanks to training, then they would succeed. Sui said that judging by the intensity of the training, they would remember this competition for a long time, and Sasha said that it was all thanks to Su Yuan. A few hours after grueling and intense training, all the students were fast asleep. But Su Yuan did not rest all this time and continued to train and improve, and finally he could exhale. The guy thought that after all, 5 days of training brought him great benefits and fewer balls hit the target. Su Yuan realized that his reaction and speed were increasing, but his physical strength was generally even less, even more than 10 times as before. The guy really lacked strength, and he thought that at any cost he had to become stronger and more powerful than now. And at that moment when the guy was thinking about how to become stronger, Sui approached him and said that he was very hungry. Sui brought him very tasty dishes and said that during the snack she just wanted to treat his wounds. Su Yuan said that this would not work and he had time to get in shape and asked Sui to rest because she had to go to school tomorrow. But suddenly Sui stood next to the guy and said that if he didn't need rest, then she didn't need it either, and besides, she wanted to try this thing in the morning. Su Yuan told the girl that she could get injured, but the girl said that training could not be done without injuries. Sui said that she watched him work hard on himself and his example inspired her to do sports. And when the device turned on, Su Yuan realized that Sui's movements were fast and her plasticity was at its best. But suddenly one ball hit the girl and she realized that it was very painful and how Su Yuan endured such unbearable pain. After that, Sui suddenly stepped on the ball and began to fall to the ground, but suddenly at the last moment she was caught by Su Yuan. And then Su Yuan realized that he could not stand this for long and they urgently needed to get out of there, and the guy quickly ran towards the exit. The guy was hit by a lot of balls, but he protected the girl to the last, and in the end they managed to get out of this room. After that, Su Yuan was sitting and having dinner and Sui asked him if this was a normal training session and why he had to kill himself like that. Su Yuan said that this was an unusual training and he needed to work even harder to complete the mission. The girl wondered if he really tortured himself like that just to save her and her mother and complete this mission. Sui thought that Su Yuan had always been a loser, and at first she didn't even believe a single word or promise of his. But every day she got to know him better and better, and the guy was no longer that same indecisive slob and weakling. Su Yi said that Su Yuan was the best at his mission and it was only thanks to him that there was not a single scratch on her. The girl looked closely at the guy and, smiling, thanked him for all his good deeds and timely defense. The girl said that it was already very late and it was time for her to go to her room to rest. Su Yi said that the guy could use some rest too. And when Su Yi left there unexpectedly, she thought about what if all the words spoken by Su Yuan were the pure truth. She thought what if her dad really was not a simple cargo transportation specialist and was deceiving her with this. Meanwhile, the next day, Su Yuan showed on the big screen all the failures of the students in the competition. The guy got mad and asked Su Yuan why he showed them last year's recording and did he really want to remind them of their shame. Another guy said that for him this recording was like a slap in the face and a mockery, and after it he lost the desire to participate. Su Yuan said that he didn't want to laugh at them, but wanted to analyze their strengths and weaknesses to determine a battle strategy. Su Yuan believed that under no circumstances should one mock such brave and courageous fighters as them. And immediately after these words, one student stood up and asked Su Yuan what he suggested they do to become stronger. Su Yuan was scrolling through the video and said that they were supposed to watch a long-distance run of 3 kilometers, but suddenly he froze in surprise. The student said that it was a shame last year and Su Yuan participated in this competition but then he was in a different class. Su Yuan carefully watched the recording of him running a long distance a year ago and finishing almost last. His last memory as Gu Cheng was that his body and mind were separated in some unimaginable way, but he didn't understand how it happened, but his consciousness still lived in the young body of an ordinary schoolboy Su Yuan. Gu Cheng thought that if his consciousness lived in this guy's body, then where did this guy Su Yuan's consciousness go? Sasha and Su Yi watched the recordings and Sasha asked her friend how a person could change so much in a short time. Ining also carefully watched this recording and she also could not understand if it was the same Su Yuan. Su Yi asked her friend what, in her opinion, could change a person so much that his character would change beyond recognition. At this moment in the recording, Su Yuan sat down on the ground and began to sob from losing and Gu Cheng could not believe that it was him. Meanwhile, at night, in some alley, someone instantly grabbed a young girl and said that luck was not on her side. And at that moment, the Ining brothers were walking there and talking about Su Yuan, but suddenly a girl walked in front of them. And then they turned around and Li Qi asked his brother if he noticed something strange and the brother said that it seemed he was too suspicious. Brother Ining carefully looked around and studied the area, he thought that he really imagined it. Meanwhile, the same woman finished with the girl and said on the phone that she followed the instructions and was in Linyuan. The woman said that at the same time she managed to get rid of the annoying tail and she was waiting for further instructions. The interlocutor told the woman that the target's photo was on her phone and she had to bring the target to them immediately. The woman thought why only she was given such tasks because she completed everything on time and without error. The interlocutor told her that the boss told them that she had to capture the target alive and she should not have been harmed. The woman looked at the target and said that her target this time was a cutie and there was a photo of Su Yi. The woman wanted to arrange an unforgettable meeting. Meanwhile, after all these events, Li Ingying's brother hit the table with his fist and said that they had missed a repeat offender again. The guy said that this agent managed to escape surveillance every time after entering the country, but the guy realized that he felt too comfortable there. The guy said that now the most important thing was to quickly find out who the agent had become now and where he was hiding and what goal he was pursuing. Meanwhile, the guy participated in competitions and said that their class would never lose to the rest of the guys again. All the students from the first class performed very strongly and even the new girl Li Ingying was the best in pole vaulting. The rest of the kids didn't understand what happened to the first grade students because they thought that these little kids could only read books. And at that moment, the 1.5 kilometer race ended and first place was taken by second-year first-grade student Su Yi. Su Yuan realized that everything was going great for Su Yi so far, and besides, her mother Wan Feng was also there and supported her daughter. Wan Feng shouted to her daughter about the best and no one could compare with her but suddenly someone began to approach her. Su Yuan immediately ran up to the woman and instantly tied up the man who was behind her and asked what he was thinking. But the woman asked Su Yuan to let this man go and said that this was not a criminal, but Meng Nan's father from their class. The woman asked the man for forgiveness and said that this child did not do it on purpose and he did not want to harm him. Su Yuan thought that this was very strange because for some reason he was sure that something was going to happen today. Su Yi told Li Ining that it was all thanks to Su Yuan's training and they could become the first among the second year. Li Ining was proud and said that her lover could not be a loser because he was a true hero. But then suddenly a woman appeared in front of them and said that she was looking for one person and asked them to help find her. Su Yi agreed with her and asked her to look at the photographs and suddenly she saw herself in this photograph and it was strange. Su Yi said that it was her and suddenly the woman said that it was great luck and wanted to attack the girl. But suddenly this woman's blow was repelled by Li Ining and she asked her friend Su Yi to quickly run away from there. Li Ining fought back against this woman and she thought how did a girl from middle school have such strength and she was very fast. Li Ining blocked the woman's path and asked what she really wanted and why she attacked them. The woman said that it was a secret and the girl could look at her carefully while lying on the floor. And then suddenly Li Ining fell to the floor and she realized that her body simply did not obey and she could not get up. Li Ining asked the woman what she did to her and the woman simply smiled and said that it was also a secret. Meanwhile, Su Yi quickly ran away from there and realized that this woman's target was her and if she ran away, the woman would fall behind Li Ining. But unexpectedly, the woman immediately grabbed her from behind and asked if she really decided she could escape from her. Su Yi realized that she couldn't move because of fear and she was losing faith in herself and thought that she was very weak. Su Yi always thought that she was strong enough to take any risks, but now she was completely helpless. The woman smiled at her and said that she would not harm her if she obeyed her. Su Yi wanted someone to save her now. Su Yi was crying and hoping that Su Yuan would save her, and suddenly at that moment Su Yuan spectacularly appeared behind the woman. Su Yuan quickly approached her and delivered a powerful kick to her face, causing the woman to fall to the ground. The woman thought why didn't she feel this boy approaching and something was wrong with the students of this school. Su Yuan made sure that Su Yi was safe and after that he asked Li Ining how she felt. The girl said that she was fine but could not move and asked the guy to be careful with the woman and said that she was strange. The guy asked Su Yi if she could move and she agreed with the guy and said that she was fine. Su Yuan affirmatively said that he needed Su Yi to fight with him and help him in battle. The girl was very surprised and said that she was very weak and that she was very scared from this woman. The girl asked Su Yuan to listen to her, but she ran to the side and asked her to wait for his signal. It was obvious to the guy that she had come for Su Yi and probably she was from this organization and finally he could stop waiting for the enemy to attack and start acting. Su Yuan realized that he could not miss such a chance and took out a pistol and began to shoot at the woman but could not hit her. The guy realized that his opponent was very fast and therefore continuing to use the gun was a bad idea. Su Yuan began to fight with the woman and his attention was drawn to the woman's gloves and the position of her hand. Su Yi carefully watched their fight and wondered if Su Yuan was not at all afraid of this dangerous woman. The girl realized that Su Yuan rushed into the fight hoping that this would inspire her and therefore she could not let him down. And at this moment, Su Yuan held the woman's hand and asked Su Yi to act immediately and she wanted to launch her attack. But suddenly the woman easily defended herself from Su Yi's blows and wanted to grab her with her glove, but Su Yuan did not allow her to do so. And at that moment when Su Yi distracted the woman with her blows, Su Yuan ran up to her and instantly cut her glove. The woman looked closely at the guy and said that from the very beginning of their battle his goal was her gloves. Su Yuan said that if he was right, then these gloves were coated with a neurotoxin that could paralyze a person. The guy said that as far as he knew there was only one person who used this technique and it was a spider. The woman was very surprised to hear this. Once, while still Gu Cheng, he fought with a spider, but for some reason then he looked completely different and it was strange. The woman began to slowly take off her glove and said that she didn't care how this guy knew about it, but suddenly the woman grinned evilly and said that anyone who knew her identity would be dead. Su Yi told the woman not to even dream about it and wanted to attack her, but the woman hit her and said that it was surrender. The woman began to run very quickly towards Su Yuan and said that she had to deal with him first. The woman instantly found herself behind the guy and dealt a strong blow. The girls asked the guy to be careful. Li Ining noticed that Su Yuan was lying on the floor and writhing in pain. She thought that she needed to get up now. Meanwhile, Su Yi was fighting with this woman and she asked her to be smart and go with her without resistance. The woman wanted to deliver the final crushing blow to Su Yi, but suddenly her blow was blocked at the last moment by Su Yuan. But then the woman grabbed the guy by the throat and began to choke him. She said he wouldn't be alive today. And at that moment, Su Yi screamed and asked the woman not to kill Su Yuan and she agreed to go with her. The woman asked the girl for forgiveness and said that this guy knew her identity and she could not let him go. But precisely at that second when the woman wanted to end the guy, she received a powerful blow from Ining. Ining stood in front of the guy and defended him with all her might. The woman was surprised and asked how she did it. Su Yuan looked at Ining and realized that she had regained sensitivity through pain and that was very brave. Ining told the guy to continue to protect Su and after all, she gave him a promise that she herself would protect him from everyone. Ining called the woman over and said that she wanted to have fun with her and dance with all her heart. The woman wanted to attack the girl, but she grabbed her hand and said that she attacked her with a very old technique. Ining began to throw her punches and she told the woman that she had no regard for her at all and that it was a mistake. Meanwhile, Su Yuan began to get up and Su Yi asked if he was okay. The guy said that he had already recovered. The guy said that he and the girl should have grabbed the spider right away and given Ining a chance to attack. At this time, Ining continued to fight with the woman and realized that their levels were different and she managed to repel almost all of her attacks. Su Yuan and Su Yi got ready and quickly ran to the spider and tied the woman together and she couldn't even move. Su Yuan asked Ining to hit the woman directly in the chest and under the ribs, and Ining struck the spider with a strong blow. The woman thought that 3 children really managed to defeat her and that's why she didn't know how to behave because it was a shame. The woman quickly stood up and thought that this time she would have to run away from there to escape from these schoolchildren. Ining told the woman to stand still and suddenly began to fall and realized that her body seemed to have not yet recovered. Su Yuan asked Su Yi to stay and look after Ining and he alone could finish off this dangerous and cunning spider. Meanwhile, the woman went up to the roof and said that because of them, she not only failed the task but also humiliated herself in front of them. The guy thought that he needed to quickly grab the girl before she had time to escape from there and interrogate her. But at that very second the woman suddenly jumped from there and went down with the help of her secret device. Su Yuan watched the woman run away and thought that the mission had failed, which meant that there was someone else. Meanwhile, Ining's brothers were running there at high speed and they wanted to make sure that their sister was unharmed. Ining said that everything was fine and it was her brothers. She was afraid that the woman attacked them for a reason. Qi immediately ran up to Su Yuan and lifted him up and asked if he really allowed their little sister to suffer like that. Qi asked for forgiveness that they came so soon because he noticed that his breathing was impaired and he must have been seriously injured. The guy looked at Su Yi and said that it looks like this girl was also very scared from such a danger. The guy said that he would take them to the hospital and at the same time they would tell him what really happened here. Su Yuan refused their offer and at that moment the announcer announced that the 3-kilometer race had begun. Su Yuan said that he was signed up for this race and he definitely had to participate in this competition no matter what. Su Yi was surprised and asked him if he had gone crazy and why he wanted to participate in the race in such a terrible state. Su Yuan said that it was his idea to participate in these competitions and he could not let his comrades down. Su Yuan asked everyone to go about their business and said that he would definitely find them all after the race. Qi asked his brother to take the girls to the hospital and stay there, but he wanted to stay with Su Yuan and watch the race. Su Yi also wanted to watch Su Yuan and Ining invited her to come with her to support Su Yuan. Ining asked her brothers if they were against it but the boys said that they agreed with Sis. Sasha was waiting for them and asked them where they had been all this time and what happened to the hand of her sister Ining. The students asked them why they had been gone for so long and who the 2 people behind them were because they did not look friendly. The guy said that they were Ining's older brothers and they came to support her little sister and her sister just fell and hurt her hand. The guy asked Su Yi to cooperate with him in the future to avoid confusion and the girl agreed with him. Meanwhile, the running began and suddenly Su Yuan fell far behind the rest of the participants and simply froze in place and did not move. The students were very surprised what happened to Su Yuan, because recently he was fine and did he really become ill? Su Yi and Li Yingyin were also very worried about the guy and asked him to continue running despite all the difficulties. Su Yuan himself understood that it seemed that he would not be able to get ahead unless he ran along the outer lane, but he did not have enough strength. Su Yuan realized that his vision was becoming blurry and his strength was almost running out and he wanted to fall to the ground. But unexpectedly at that moment the guy heard that all his true friends and classmates supported him with all their might. After this, Su Yuan became inspired and filled with energy. He began to slowly overtake the other participants. The students continued to support the guy and eventually Su Yuan took the lead and crossed the finish line first. Everyone was very happy about this and did not hide their delight. The students said that Su Yuan was a very cool guy. And suddenly, right after the guy crossed the finish line, Su Yuan fell to the ground and lost consciousness. After this, the guy was taken to the hospital and when he woke up, he asked who was in his room because he heard sounds. Sasha was sitting there and she greeted the guy and, smiling, asked the guy if he remembered who he was before he passed out. Su Yuan asked where Su Yi was now and Sasha said that she was now with Li Yingyin and her brothers. The guy finally calmed down because these two guys were military men, which meant that Su Yi was safe with them. The guy asked the girl why she was sitting there alone without her friends and asked maybe something happened. Sasha looked closely at the guy and said that she wanted to talk to him alone without strangers. Sasha said that during the day he was guarded by the Ining brothers and she had no chance to get to him, but her family sponsored this hospital so she found a way. Sasha told the guy that perhaps what she said would seem strange, but it was the most suitable solution that she found. After he fainted at the competition, Sasha tried to question Li Yingyin and Su Yi, but they did not want to share the details of the situation. So she secretly asked the doctor to examine him carefully and it turned out that his injuries were caused by a fight. Sasha knew how strong they were and the fight in which the three of them were injured was obviously not just a school brawl. And then Sasha decided that the soldiers who suddenly appeared told the girls to remain silent because people who knew about this were in danger. Then she thought that Su Yuan had changed a lot recently and was constantly guarding Su Yi and began to train. This time he himself suffered the most and Su Yi suffered the least, and it was obvious that he sacrificed himself to protect her from danger. The guy listened to her carefully and Sasha decided that this time they really faced the enemy who had come for Su Yi. Sasha found the actions of the young schoolboy very strange because only the military were capable of eliminating the consequences. And Sasha came to the conclusion and it even seemed unimaginable to her, but she assumed that the guy was not Su Yuan. And then suddenly the guy looked intently into the girl's eyes and said that she was right and assumed everything correctly. The guy told the whole truth about being reborn in another body and Sasha was shocked and she couldn't even imagine such an answer. But Sasha asked the guy why he didn't contact someone else from that time, because his organization could simply provide protection for Su Yi. The guy said that when he was Gu Cheng it was impossible to contact him because all his phones were tapped. And besides, if a person appeared in front of him who would give out all the information about him, he would finish him off on the spot. Sasha listened to everything carefully and asked if the guy was going to tell Su Yi about this and Su Yuan agreed with her. Sasha said that the fewer people who knew his secret, the better it would be, because it could cause him unnecessary trouble and even threaten his life. Sasha asked the guy if they used camouflage when they entered the forest and now Su Yuan's identity was his camouflage. The next day, all his friends came to visit the guy at the hospital and Su Yuan said that he was fine. Su Yi asked him to take a good rest and said that she helped him take time off from school and nothing would bother him. Li Yingying's brother asked his sister if she wanted to go and ask the doctor when the guy could leave the hospital. And then Li Yingying looked at them menacingly and the guys thought that they were her older brothers but were very afraid from her gaze. Li Yingying immediately grabbed Su Yi's hand and asked her to go and find a doctor to ask him about Su Yuan's condition. And then Li Yingying's brothers came closer to the guy and asked him how he was connected with this matter and waited for an answer. Su Yuan said that he just wanted to help resolve the situation as a friend or classmate. Li Qi got very angry and asked the guy to quickly lay out everything he knew, otherwise they would have grabbed and dragged that guy back. The guy told his brother to cool down and said that Su Yuan was definitely hiding something and that's why he wanted to make a deal with him. A few days earlier, Gu Cheng and his team had a combat operation and he reported to his team that everything was clear. The soldiers ordered no one to move and to put down all their weapons, but to their great surprise there was no one in this room. And then suddenly they noticed that a humanoid creature was lying on the ground and said that a new era had come. Gu Cheng and all his comrades froze in surprise and did not understand what kind of creature it was and how it was possible. And now Li Yingying's brother was telling Su Yuan that there were too many mysteries in him, and this aroused their curiosity. And they hoped that in the future he would join them, and so this time he wanted to exchange information with him. Su Yuan agreed with the guy and asked what he wanted to know because he was ready to answer all his questions. The guy said that he heard that the man who attacked them that day came for Su Yi, and he recognized the enemy and called him a spider. Su Yuan listened carefully to the guy's words and realized that everything was really as Sasha said. Yesterday, Sasha told Su Yuan that while he was unconscious, the two military men must have learned about the situation from Su Yi and Li Yingying. And if he had told them the truth, then in the worst case, he and Su Yi would have been taken away and taken under protection, and then they would have lost their independence. Sasha told the guy how he needed to answer them, and Su Yuan told the guys that he had two conditions. Su Yuan's first condition was that he didn't want them to ask him how he knew the information, and the guy's second condition was that he didn't want them to take any action against him or Su Yi. Su Yuan said that he announced to them all the conditions he needed, and if he agreed, then he would tell him everything he knows. Brother Li Yingying, after listening to Su Yuan's demands, thought that the guy had never been like this before, and it was very strange. The guy couldn't understand what was the matter, but in the end it dawned on him that there was definitely a person who gave him this idea. Brother Li Yingying thought carefully and told Su Yuan that he agreed to all the conditions and rules he proposed. Su Yuan asked the guy to look up information about Mota prison, and there was a prisoner there who was known under the pseudonym Spider. Su Yuan handed the guy a drawing and said that this organization was called Osiris, and all the repulsed people were gathered there. The guy was surprised whether this spider was connected with Osiris, and besides, this prison was strictly guarded from cruel criminals. Su Yuan noticed this guy's curiosity and asked if they were familiar with this organization and how they knew about the spider. The guy said that they had previously encountered a case of illegal experiments on people, and this case was related to Osiris. Brother Li Yingying said that almost at the same time a man appeared who saw the spider commit its crimes. According to the witness, after the spider was finally done with the victim, it completely took on the appearance of this victim. And now it became clear to Su Yuan why the spider was completely different from the one he remembered. Su Yuan asked the guy how it was possible. The guy asked Su Yuan if he remembered asking him earlier how he knew that he would be behind him. And then suddenly the guy said that he had a special ability like a spider, and therefore he was able to anticipate its movements. Meanwhile, the spider was sitting in some room and she received a notification that information regarding Su Yuan had been found. The man told all the information about all his 17 years of life, including personal relationships, and all the information was there. The man said that Su Yuan had an ordinary family and they lived on one salary and there was nothing suspicious about him. The woman got angry and said that it was impossible and this guy was not as simple as he seems and he missed something. The man said that he was surprised that the spider made him waste time on some minor garbage. And then suddenly the man asked the spider if the fact that he had failed the task had already been erased from his mind. The man said that the spider was still breathing only because of its ability and because at least she had an image of the goal, and that was the only reason the head saved his life. The man became wary and threateningly asked the spider to press his tail and wait with bated breath for further instructions from him. The spider became very angry when he heard these words and said that it all happened because of this scoundrel named Su Yuan. Meanwhile, early in the morning, Su Yi and Li Yingying trained together and they improved their fighting techniques. Su Yi realized that Li Yingying was very strong, and it was not for nothing that she became the leader of the 9th district with such powerful strength. But Su Yi thought that she no longer wanted to become a burden to them, so she stood up and continued to attack the girl. Meanwhile, Su Yuan was thinking about this Osiris and the spider. To this day there was no news, and this made him very alarmed. As far as he knew them, if the operation failed the first time, then the second time they would have prepared an impeccable plan. But Su Yuan thought that in such a state he would not be able to resist future enemies because they were liberated and strong. But suddenly, when Su Yuan lost hope, Sasha told him that she could help him in difficult times. Sasha said that she could provide him with the best equipment for training and any equipment in addition to weapons. The guy listened to her and asked that perhaps she also had conditions, and Sasha told Su Yuan that he had finally matured. Sasha said that her condition was quite simple and she just wanted to join and help him in this matter. Sasha said that bad people wanted to kidnap her best friend, and knowing this, how could she sit and do nothing? Sasha confidently said that she was going to use all her resources to help Yuan stop the villains. At night of the same day, the news reported that according to the astronomical forecast, a meteor shower was expected that night. Yuan's aunt called the guy and said that there was a meteor shower and they wanted to make a wish on a falling star. Yuan said that the shooting star was just a meteorite, and was it really something they taught him in astronomy class at school? But his aunt pulled his ear and asked him to stop talking nonsense and go admire the stars with her. And at that moment a meteor shower began in the sky, and Sui also watched all this heavenly beauty because it was amazing. Sui immediately closed her eyes and thought that she no longer wanted to retreat in the face of danger and wanted to be prepared for anything. Sasha also admired this beauty and made a wish, and she wanted her friends to successfully cope with this situation. Yuan's aunt asked the guy to also make a wish and said that it could come true and you had to believe in miracles. Yuan concentrated and looked carefully at the heavens and wished that this would all end successfully and that everything would be fine. But in fact, on this good night, only a few knew how much this world would change very soon. On the 7th day after the meteor shower, the man continued to beat his son, third school student Wei Bai. The poor boy looked at the heavens and thought that the wish he made really couldn't come true. The guy thought that this would never end, and suddenly at that moment something strange began to happen. And at that very second, some white-haired boy appeared in front of Wei Bai and said that he was his new partner. Wei Bai looked carefully at this guy who appeared and wondered if it was really an awakened one. Meanwhile, Yuan was walking outside with his girls and Sui asked him how his injury was. And then Yuan stopped the girls because he saw robbers robbing the cash-in-transit car. Sui said that these bandits had completely lost their fear and wanted to attack them, but Yuan stopped her and said that now was not the best time. And at that very moment the police arrived there and pointed their guns at them and ordered them not to move. The robber asked the police if they really wanted to stop them with rubber bullets and toy machine guns. And at the same moment, a huge explosion thundered there and Yuan asked his girls to quickly lie down on the ground. Yuan carefully watched the robber leaving and wondered if it was also an awakened one. After this, when Yuan arrived home, he saw the shocking news that the robbers had the courage to blow up the cash in transit in front of everyone. Yuan carefully prepared to find out the whole truth about these robbers and figure it out. The guy saw a motorcycle that was standing near his house and he immediately stole it and left a note saying that he would return it tomorrow. Yuan drove very quickly along the road and thought that judging by the video recordings, the robbers knew the collector's schedule well. There were more than 100 banks in Linyuan, but they chose a remote location for the robbery and they were familiar with the area. The guy thought that they managed to escape surveillance while avoiding crowded routes, and Yuan realized that only one place was suitable. Meanwhile, the robbers sat in the unfinished building and counted the proceeds. They threw money everywhere. And then one of the robbers said that tomorrow they will register a one-day company and will launder money there. After a long search, Yuan finally found the building they were hiding in and suddenly appeared right in front of them. Yuan immediately began to mercilessly attack these robbers and they wondered who this guy was after all. The robber immediately wanted to deal with the guy and blow him up, and Yuan realized that the force of the explosion was colossal. But if he kept a distance of 5 steps, the force of the explosion would be limited and he would receive a maximum blow from the blast wave. And at that moment, Yuan realized that everything was exactly the same as in the CCTV cameras and the explosion occurred from a snap of his fingers. The robber immediately prepared to organize an explosion with both hands and asked Yuan where he was hiding now. Yuan realized that when using one hand the explosion covered 180 degrees, but in the case of 2 hands it was serious. With both hands pointing in different directions, the area of the explosion would increase and the safest place would be to approach it. Yuan instantly approached the robber and stood behind him, twisted his arm and deprived him of his capabilities. And at that moment, Yuan took out a knife and told the robber that now he would ask questions and he had to answer. Yuan said that if he realized that he lied, then for each lie he was ready to deprive the robber of his fingers. The robber was very scared by this and he was ready to tell Yuan everything and just wanted to get out of this place. Su Yuan asked where he got the power from and the guy said that he didn't know about it and a couple of days ago when he was counting the proceeds his hand exploded. Su Yuan said that he did not believe him and asked again how it happened and the robber did not remember it. And suddenly at that moment the robber asked the guy to stop hurting him because he remembered everything. The robber said that it was a week ago, the day after the meteor shower, and that day he took his younger brother with him. And then Su Yuan suddenly remembered about the meteor shower and wanted to ask the guy one last question. But suddenly a voice behind Su Yuan told him that it seemed like he had beaten him to it and got there first. Su Yuan immediately turned around and wondered how he could not feel the presence of a person behind him. The same awakened white-haired guy stood there and he approached the robber and said that he, too, was awakened. But unexpectedly, when no one expected such an outcome, the white-haired guy finished off the robber with one stroke and said that he was weak. Su Yuan was very surprised by this and did not understand what happened there because this white-haired guy was very strong. The white-haired guy looked at Su Yuan and said that he did not feel the strength in him and Su Yuan asked him if he was awakened. Gu Cheng's last memory was that his enemy waved his hand in the same way and he lost consciousness. This was Gu Cheng's last memory before his death and immediately after that he ended up in Su Yuan's body. Su Yuan looked at the guy and realized that due to the lack of intelligence about melons, he did not know about the existence of super abilities. Su Yuan then not only did not understand the strength of the enemy, but also could not determine the correct way to eliminate him. However, after all the training his body had gone through, maybe he should try this move. And then the white-haired guy told Su Yuan that if he was silent then he wanted to check it in his own way. Gu Cheng recalled that something happened in the past for which Gu Cheng received his nickname. When Mexican drug lord Costella became the target of Gu Cheng's organization, he was about to flee and was surrounded by bodyguards on all sides. But the most surprising thing was that none of the people present noticed Gu Cheng's presence. And the most amazing thing was the fact that Gu Cheng was right under their noses and so he managed to successfully eliminate the Baron. And when the bodyguards realized that something had happened, the drug lord was already lying on the ground unconscious and Gu Cheng disappeared from there. But they didn't realize one thing, in fact, Gu Cheng was there and he quickly dealt with all the bodyguards. After this, Gu Cheng quietly disappeared from there and subsequently, because of this event, everyone called Gu Cheng a phantom. And suddenly the white-haired guy noticed that Su Yuan simply disappeared from there and his heartbeat could not even be heard. And at that moment, Su Yuan appeared behind this guy and wanted to stab him with his knife, but he failed. And after that, Su Yuan disappeared again and the guy laughed and now the ability of this schoolboy became clear to him. The white-haired guy was very happy about this and said that Su Yuan looked like a ghost and it was interesting. The white-haired guy said that if Su Yuan showed what he was capable of, then he wanted to show him his true colors. The guy thought that they were playing hide and seek and it was funny and if he found Su Yuan he would end things with him. And then the guy noticed that Su Yuan was leaving there on a motorcycle and the guy said that he didn't play like that and he didn't like it. And at that moment the guy called someone and said that he decided to stay in Linyuan and help the spider complete the task he had started. The interlocutor asked the guy what made him change his mind and the guy said that he met a very entertaining toy there. Meanwhile, Su Yuan thought that he had already learned about many things and he needed to carefully prepare for further actions. The guy asked Su Yuan to run because it was better and this little ghost would think that he would be able to hide from him. Meanwhile, Ining was lying tied up in a room and asking people to immediately release her to freedom. The doctor told her brothers that they had conducted a large number of examinations and all the indicators were outside the norm and he could not determine her illness. Li Qi asked the doctor how they could not detect the disease and the doctor said that this was really the first time they had encountered something like this. The doctor said that in the worst case, if they had not taken measures and restrained her, the girl would only have died. Meanwhile, Li Yingying's body's vital signs continued to drop, and within 5 minutes her heart would have stopped. Despite the fact that no symptoms were detected, her cerebral cortex was still active and this slowed down the disease. It was very painful for Li Qi to look at this and he wanted to take his sister to another place and maybe they could help her there. Li Qi said that they were already in a state-level research center and wasn't this the best place? Li Qi asked his brother how they could stand and do nothing because it was their sister, but suddenly Li Ji hit him in the face. L and G said that they still did not know what happened to their sister and rash actions could have harmed her more. Li Ji believed in his sister to the last and understood that now she was trying with all her might to get out of this situation. Meanwhile, Li Ining recalled that her brothers told her that she was a girl and they always tried to protect her. The brothers always took full responsibility upon themselves and said that she was a girl, so many things were beyond her power. Boys always teased her as a child and asked why she always competed only with boys. And then a girl appeared in front of Li Ining and asked why she resisted and asked her to give up. The girl asked Li Ining why she forced herself to do things inappropriate for a girl and be a fighter. The poor girl was always told that she had a tough character like a man and it made them laugh. Li Ining was thinking about all her failures and suddenly at that moment her pulse began to drop rapidly. The doctor said that the girl's vital signs had disappeared and he condoled with them. Li Qi couldn't believe it. And at that moment, Li Ining remembered Su Yuan and that he said that she was much stronger than him. Su Yuan said that she was superior to him in everything and with her he could only defend himself, and besides, in battle her gender was unimportant. Li Ining realized that Su Yuan said everything correctly and she thought how could she forget about it. Li Ining wanted to continue to fight and she wanted to continue to use her strength to protect those close to her. Li Ining thought that she wanted to prove to the world that she was able to break free and become stronger and find her true self. Li Ining began to destroy all the obstacles that stood in her way and the girl thought that she now looked dazzling. And although the current Li Ining was still weak, she managed to overcome difficulties and found her wings. And then suddenly Li Ining came to her senses and it was incredible. Her brothers were very happy that her little sister woke up. Meanwhile, the white-haired guy told the spider that 2 days of searching had not yielded any results and the guy hid well. The spider was very interested and she asked who the guy was who could arouse such interest in him. The guy said that Su Yuan was very interesting and he became quiet and elusive and was able to escape from his hands unharmed. The guy said that curiosity haunted him and he couldn't wait to find Su Yuan and explore him thoroughly. And for some reason it seemed to the spider that she knew this guy and she thought that it was Gu Cheng and she wondered if he had arrived in Linyuan. And then suddenly the guy turned around and told the spider that his heartbeat had increased and did he really remember this guy? Meanwhile, all classes ended at school and Sasha said goodbye to her best friends and went home. Su-yi thought that the habit was a terrible thing because now she didn't even notice that Su Yuan was next to her. The girl recalled that he used to get on her nerves so much with his childish behavior that she even laughed at him. Su-yi thought that she definitely had to ask who those people were who wanted to harm her a few days ago. And then the girl turned around and said that she wanted to ask Su Yuan something but the guy asked her to look at his notebook. Su-yi said that it seemed like there was a problem in class that she wanted to deal with alone, and the guy agreed with her. Su-yi said that she would go home and they would see each other tomorrow and she said that she would keep his notebook. And then suddenly a spider and a guy appeared in front of Su-yi and the spider was not worried this time and they had to take the girl. The spider smiled and said that now no one could stop them and this time the goal was left alone and it was good for them. They wanted to kidnap the girl and wanted to start attacking Su-yi, but suddenly only a pillow appeared in front of them and they tore it. And then Su Yuan appeared in front of them and the guy did not hear a heartbeat or breathing and asked if he was a ghost. The spider thought that if it really was this guy, then she would not let him escape this time and would hurt him. The spider wanted to force the guy to show his true face because they had not yet seen this ghost in person. Su Yuan thought that because of this guy's abilities, dust evenly filled the entire space and threw a lighter at them. The spider asked the white-haired guy to get out of there and immediately after that, suddenly a huge explosion thundered there. Su-yi stood outside and was very worried about Su Yuan and remembered that 10 minutes ago he asked her to look at his notebook. Su Yuan wrote in his notebook that it was dangerous there and asked Su-yi to help him and pretend that she was communicating with him. And after that, Su-yi played along with him and said that it seemed like there was a problem in their class that she had to fix. But in fact, Su Yuan asked her to enter the building but not go home and go out through the emergency exit and call the police. Meanwhile, people admired the house and were wondering why the explosion occurred and it seemed to be caused by a gas leak. People were wondering why the firefighters arrived there so quickly and this showed how powerful their country was. Su Yuan at this time realized that his senses did not let him down and he learned that someone was following and watching Su-yi. And at that moment, Su Yuan realized that nothing had happened yet because the spider was waiting for help from Osiris and this guy came to her. Su Yi immediately ran up to Su Yuan and asked if he had suffered from such a powerful explosion and from these scoundrels. Su Yuan said that he was fine and grabbed her hand and asked her to leave from there because it was not safe there. Su Yi thought that just recently she had so many questions, but at that moment these questions seemed completely unimportant. After that they came to Sasha's house. Su Yi said that it seemed to her as if it was not a house but a huge fairy tale palace. And there Sasha met them and told Su Yi that bad people had broken into her house and asked them to let her see if everything was okay with her. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Su Yi recognized the man who was standing behind Sasha. This was the same man who kidnapped Sasha. Su Yi approached Sasha and asked if this man was not her kidnapper, and Sasha answered her consent to her question. The man, meanwhile, approached Su Yuan and said that he did not expect their next meeting to take place in this place. Sasha said that this man's name was Bao Zi and that he used to be a retired special forces soldier and now she is her bodyguard. Sasha said that because of that incident, they specially studied the abilities, experience, and personal data of Bao Zi and he turned out to be very talented. Sasha said that for the Rou family, a person's past did not matter as long as he was willing to use power for their personal purposes. After this story, Sasha asked her friends to come to her house and feel at home and not be shy. Su Yuan carefully examined the house and noticed that there was enough security there since the team was assembled by a former special forces soldier. The guy thought that this man probably had a lot of experience and that's why they were able to react quickly in an emergency situation. Surveillance cameras were installed everywhere in this house, which synchronously transmitted and updated information. Su Yuan told the girls that the security system there was satisfactory and could be used for protection, but that was not enough. And then Bao Zi stood in front of the guy and said that this guy really questioned his professionalism and skill. Bao Zi said that why not demonstrate the perfection of the security system by successfully catching the intruder Su Yuan. The man said that otherwise Su Yuan would have proven that there were flaws in his system that needed to be corrected. Sasha listened carefully to the argument between two men and she was very interested in which of them would end up being right. And at that moment, Bao Zi asked all his people to listen to his order. He activated high security mode. The man said that the offender was a high school student but asked them not to relax because everything had to be at the highest level. Su Yuan realized that there were enough guards there, but they were concentrated in one place and the force was unevenly distributed. Su Yuan realized that this was not a guard but a group of moving targets and he began to elude them in a matter of seconds. Su Yuan easily realized that the location of the surveillance cameras was inappropriate, which easily led to blind spots. And at that moment, Bao Zi's people informed him that the guy had suddenly disappeared and was not visible on the surveillance cameras. Bao Zi said that he was right in front of his eyes but people only saw him on the monitor and it was strange. And at that very second, Bao Zi realized that this guy was really right and he had to strengthen the defense of this house. Su Yuan wanted to see if Bao Zi could stop him and quickly moved towards him with the intention of attacking him. Bao Zi immediately took out his gun and said that he would not allow him to get close to Miss Sasha and would protect her. But Su Yuan began to dodge the bullets and then Bao Zi realized that the guy's strength and speed had become even stronger since last time. After that, Su Yuan came close to the man and asked him not to be deceived and hit him in the face with all his might. Bao Zi lay on the ground and thought that he, as a former military man, was destined to lose and told the guy that he had defeated him. Su Yuan asked the man to just not give up and believe in himself because he could still become much stronger than now. Bao Zi asked Sasha for forgiveness and said that their defense was ineffective and he was ready to be fired. But Sasha smiled and said that now the man knew about the existing problems and he could fix them. Sasha said that in the end, Su Yuan also had a hard time because Bao Zi was very strong. Bao Zi bowed and thanked everyone for such pleasant words and now he believed in himself and wanted to improve quickly. Sasha approached Su Yi and said that even though Su Yuan proved he was right, her guards suffered greatly from this. Su Yuan thought that they did not suffer much because of him, however, he was to blame for this and wanted to temporarily serve as Sasha's guard. Sasha was very happy about this news and said that then she really counted on him because he always kept his promises. Sasha got ready to go and asked her to tell her father that there was no need to worry about her safety because she was protected by Su Yi and Su Yuan. Sasha asked Su Yi if she really said that they could have a pajama party and have fun and play all night. Sasha said that she was a little old-fashioned, but thanks to them she was able to relax a little and be a free girl. Sue agreed with Sasha and said that then they will do what they want and have a blast and have fun all night.